Invite. Hey y'all. Oh, let me do it again one more time. Okay. Hey guys. We're going to have a guest speaker. He goes by Nicky Nixon here on TikTok. And we're going to be talking all about meth addiction. So come on in. Don't be shy. Come on in. Don't be shy. I'm doing good. What about you, honey? Let me get myself together. I think he just went live again. So let me... Oh, there we go. Send it. There we go.
What's going on?
Are you excited? Oh, you paused your live. Okay, y'all. So Nikki's gonna come on and join me today, and he's gonna share his story. Let's see if he gets it figured out. There you go. You're back.
There you go. Yeah. How's it going? You doing okay?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited to have you on to share your experience with addiction, specifically meth addiction, but we're going to talk about everything, right?
No problem. No problem. Talk
Okay,
about
I'm
anything.
excited. Okay, so you guys, I found Nikki. I was scrolling through TikTok one day, and I was one of your videos popped up, and you were like talking about how to know if somebody's tweaking, basically, and it was hilarious. Like that video went so viral for you because everything you said in it was 100% true. So, what I would like
Oh
to
yeah.
do is start out. Will you introduce yourself to everybody, and then tell us what your drug of choice was and how long you've been sober?
Yeah. My name is Nicky Nixon. My drug of choice is methamphetamine. It was cocaine for many years. Been sober for a few years now. I don't have a sober date. I don't really keep up with that because then you have to think about it every day. You know, like
That's
I
okay.
see a lot of people. I see a lot of people like that. And it's cool if it works for them. But they'll be like, I've been sober for 2 years, 1 month, 3 days, 4 hours, and 7 minutes. Then you must
That
be thinking about it. If you got that down pat. So I mean, I don't want to be thinking about it. I just like to occupy my life and not be thinking about drugs at all, and not realize how long I've been sober.
I think that's awesome. I'm the opposite, and I like keep track of it because it's kind of like a motivation for me. Every now and then, I'll say, Google, how many days has it been since July 13th of 2015? And it'll tell me like
Oh, that's cool.
3,965 days or some shit like that.
I
And
hear you.
but it keeps me, kind of encouraged. So, what I
Yeah.
want to know is, how did you get into using substances? What was it like when you were growing up as a kid, and how did you get into using substances?
Well, what it was like growing up for me as a kid. My father was a drug dealer. He's no longer with us, but he did that, and he was I don't know how to term very successful at it for many years. Let me put it that way. He'd been to different countries like Kingston, Jamaica, Barranquilla, Santa Marta, all over South America. He was a high level drug dealer. He started off with marijuana, and I discovered that that's what he did for a living back when I guess I was about 7 or 8 years old in the 70s, early 70s, and uh, I knew what he did from like 7 years old up, and later on, I know like when I was about 13, one time I'd helped him unload a truck full of pot. I think it was about 1,300 pounds in it, and put it in the storage building we had. It was just a normal part of life for me. It's just what my dad did. And he provided very well for us. I had never wanted for anything. And,
How did
you
you
know,
figure out that's what he was doing? What was the thing that you realized, okay, my dad's selling drugs? Like, did you catch him doing something, and then you asked a question? How did that go down?
yeah, I was sent a shirt that my dad used to wear. It was advertising zigzag rolling papers. I didn't know what a rolling paper was. I was 7 or 8, and had showed a little man smoking a joint on the shirt, and I knew that sometimes I'd get up in the middle of the night, and my dad and my mom would be up, and I'd smell something funny in the house, and I was like, so I confronted my mom one day. I was like, what is this zigzag stuff that Dad smokes? And and that's when he set me down and told me, look, a lot of people don't like it or whatever, but it's illegal, so you can't tell nobody about it. But this, kind of what I do for a living, and That was cool. I knew to keep it to myself. And, he's like, it's a whole lot less harmful than beer and this and that. So I never thought nothing about it, never give it a big thought. I thought this, hell, I like what he did for a living. He provided very well for us.
Yeah. And so he provided a good life for y'all growing up. Y'all had a like y'all were well off in the fact that you didn't want for nothing.
Yeah.
Did it cause any kind of like? Did you guys ever have any kind of trauma or chaos in the home? Like, or was your dad like a strictly business kind of guy where he didn't have users around the home, or did he have people coming in and out? How was it at home?
He did most of his stealing. It was not at home. He would, meet somebody like at the local beer joint. So they stopped somewhere at a local bar and he made them and he'd arrange it like that. He didn't really do it from home for a long, long time because, it's mostly because of the amounts were like, when you'd be talking about hundreds of pounds of pot or hundreds of pounds of, things like that. It's not something you could just hand off out of your pocket to somebody or
Right,
things
right.
like that.
Did he go to prison for that or no?
Yeah, he got caught with 2.5 kilos of cocaine back in the '80s when I was in I think the 11th grade, and he done 5 years for it. He pled guilty to a lesser charge if he would plead guilty. I think the third day of his trial, they wasn't sure if they were going to be able to convict him, so they offered him a plea bargain.
How did that affect your life as a kid, as an 11th grader?
It turned it upside down, as far as everybody in my school knew, everybody in this county and the next surrounding counties, it was all on the front page of the papers. I think at the time it said something like $465,000 in drugs confiscated and money and things like that. And it showed his picture for 3 days in a row in our local paper on the front page.
Did
So,
the kids you hung out with, was their parents like, oh, you guys can't hang out with Nicky because his dad's a drug dealer and going to prison now?
yeah, I had some of that. I sure did. But it didn't, it didn't affect how many friends I don't think I had because my real friends, they still stuck. Most people knew what my dad did for a living to start with. I mean, it
Yeah,
was very well talked about. Very little people had actually done any business with him, but everybody in town pretty much knew that's what he did.
yeah.
It was acceptable. It's like, I don't know, my dad was an extremely nice guy, super nice guy. He's friendly, really down to earth, didn't meet a stranger, and he's just a super cool guy to know, and he'd help you any way he could in the world. And I guess that people look over a lot of stuff for that, you know?
Yeah, and it's not
This
like
is,
it's not like he was selling fentanyl to people and people were dying behind it. Like this was more, like marijuana, cocaine, and it was also in the South where like everybody's like it's like a good old boy system, and so like he
yeah,
has
you're
his
exactly right.
friends and his friends have his friends and all that.
Yeah, and this was like right before crack came along. You
Yeah,
know, and this was like when everybody still thought, so to speak, that cocaine was good for you. I was looking it up a while back, and there was like in the early 1980s, I think 81, 82, somewhere. There was only like 3 rehab centers for drugs in the whole United States. It was like the Hazelden Clinic, the Betty Ford Clinic, and one other one. There was no local Narcotics Anonymous or no things like that going on that anybody knew about. And magazines would still talk about how it's psychologically maybe addictive, but it's not physically addictive. And the articles would be like it was like it was good for you,
yeah.
like it was just a rich person's drug, but it had no harmful effects. And little did we know at the time.
How did you get? How when was the first time you ever used drugs? And what? How did you get into using and doing everything that you were doing with drugs? Tell us about
Uh,
that. Take your
I got
time.
in,
I want you to really tell us.
okay. I say, yeah, first time I smoked pot, I think it was 12 or 13. We had 80 some acres of land, and me and a cousin of mine, we went camping one weekend, and I just reached my dad's nightstand and got me a big bud of pot because that's what he was a connoisseur for the pot, and he liked to keep these exotic kinds around and things like that. And I just took a big bud and smoked a joint or two, and that was it. And I didn't really do any drugs except for drinking until I was 16, and then my dad sometimes he would get me to he might have a kilo or 2 kilos of cocaine, and we had all this land, and I rode my motorcycles. I would motocross. I would ride my bike all the time, and he would get me to take it. He'd be like, "Hey, take this box, will you? Take it out of the woods and hide it somewhere on the land somewhere where you figure out where it's at, and you'll know how to get back to it because all trees look alike and things like that. Be sure you can find it." And so I'd take it out on my motorcycle when I was out riding. That way it didn't look suspicious, and if anybody was looking or watching my dad, they wouldn't see him doing anything. And one day I got the curiosity kind of got to me, and I thought, I'm going to take some of this shit and I want to see what it's like. And that's what I did. And I tried it, and it was absolutely made me feel on top of the world. I felt like that. Felt like I could do no wrong. It made me stand taller. It made my teeth whiter. It made me it made my clothes fit better. It made my muscles bigger. It put me on top of the world. I could say no wrong when I talked to girls, when I did anything like that. It was like everything that come out of my mouth was gold. That's the way I felt.
I can relate to that. That's exactly the same way I felt the first time I ever smoked meth. It made me feel like I had found everything I was looking for in life.
Yeah,
I
I need this from now on to make me feel complete. You know.
Yeah, like it was my best friend. We were gonna get married.
Oh, I'm telling you. Let me introduce you to the love of my life. Cocaine, come on in here. Meth, where you at? You know. That's the way I
Yeah.
felt.
And so after that first time you did it, did you go in immediately into like using addictively, or were you like, I'm gonna control this and I'm gonna be okay?
Yeah, I thought I would be fine. I thought it was, it's okay. My dad, he wasn't really a user. He would use it. He would use it like on a weekend, special occasion, or maybe when I wasn't around, it wasn't an everyday thing for him. But he didn't have that addictive kind of personality. He could do with it or without it. He might put beer in the refrigerator, and he might have 2 beers tonight. He might not drink another. He might be 4 more left over, and it might stay in the refrigerator for the next 2 months. Then he might drink three of them one night and save the last one. It might be drank 6 months later. Yeah, there was no set pattern to him.
Yeah. Was it like that for you, or were you like boom, 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 boom with drugs?
It was to start with. When I started off with the cocaine, what I did was I would go to. I knew the guys he would dealt with, the grown men that he dealt with. I'm 17, 18, and anyway, so I got where I would go back to them after he would take them he would take them drugs. He would take them, a quarter, half pound, or something like that. So I knew they had it. It wouldn't be 2 hours later. I might show back up over their house and be like, "Hey, front me a half ounce, front me an ounce." I got a few buddies of mine that like to do this, and that's how that started off. And it got to be a lot bigger, a lot quicker than what I wanted it to be. As far as the amounts and weights and how many, and me discovering how many people actually like this drug.
Yeah, and this was cocaine, right?
Yeah, this was cocaine to start with. It was meth right after that, and and in the later years, that's all I messed with.
So once you started realizing that, hey, I can make money like this, is that kind of what
Oh
piqued your
yeah,
interest in, getting more and distributing it?
yeah. As far as distributing, is that what you're asking? I got more into that. I know that I started. I was still in high school, and I started. I know ounces of cocaine at the time. They were going for around 1,800, 1,700 around here, and I started getting about one a week. And my buddies were they took to it like it was candy. It's just like everybody loved it. It was just, like I say, it was way before it was right before the crack and stuff come along, and nobody seen any harm in it. And so I started getting rid of that, and it wasn't nothing for me before I even graduated high school. I would get like a quarter pound at a time, and I think I was paying 6,400 for a pound. You got to remember, this is like doing a $20,000 deal now, because this was back in the early '80s. It's been
Yes.
40 years ago. And so it went on from there. And then when my dad got caught, I started going to a couple of guys that he knew. A couple of his guys, friends that came to me and were like, "Hey, do you still have your dad's connection? Can you still give me some stuff? I used to buy this from him or that from him." And I would, yeah, I arranged that. And so that made it real easy for me to have all I wanted for, a couple of years, as far as being able to do it and, not cost me
Cocaine,
nothing.
like, I don't know how you work. I don't know did you inject cocaine at all?
Yeah, I did one time for about a 3-day binge. I couldn't get used to the needle part, thank God. But
Thank God,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's why I couldn't keep up with cocaine, and I had to switch over to methamphetamine because I couldn't keep up with the price. Like, it was
Oh
so
yeah,
expensive, and it would last such a short amount of time. So once I figured out that
right.
I could do this much and be up for 3 days on meth instead of 5 minutes on cocaine, I was like,
I
woohoo,
discovered the
methamphetamine.
same. I discovered that same thing. I did, and then it was it was before, like I say, it's before crack came along. I remember the first time I'd done that, when I figured out I had a problem. I think is I was young. I kept detailed records of myself, which is stupid now. But I remember it was like the year after I graduated high school, I sold several kilos that year. I kept up, like every time I'd get a few ounces, I just write it down. And I discovered at the end of the year, if I'd have just made like $200 or $300 off every ounce, I should have made around $70,000 that year. And I didn't have anything to show for it. It was because we had discovered, we called it cooking and looking. We didn't know what the word crack hadn't came out. And I remember I was about ready for rehab, I think, for this stuff because I was like dead on it. I mean, it's all I thought about. It consumed me. And yeah, and when but we would, you couldn't buy crack already cooked up back then. There was no such thing. I've never smoked it without cooking it myself. I just have to buy the powder and then cook it myself. And we called it cooking and looking because the only thing it made us want to do is go look out a window somewhere. So we'd cook it up and we'd sit
Make
around
me
looking
do
out a
the
window.
same thing. I looked out the blinds for like 7 hours one time. I barricaded myself in my apartment, dude. I took
Oh
all the
yeah.
furniture from the apartment and I pushed it up against the door. And me and this guy that lived beside me were just sitting there smoking the crack, looking outside the window, the little blinds, and I was underneath the door, looking underneath the crack of the door, because I swore the police were on the other side of the door and were going to kick the door in at any time.
Been there and done that.
How
Yeah,
did
I'm
why
familiar.
did
We're
we do
familiar
that?
with it.
Why did we
I
do
don't
that? That
know.
wasn't enjoyable.
It didn't look like it was fun. I was thinking like when you would snort, we would go out to clubs or we'd go party and, everybody's socialized and you kept wanted to tell you their life story and just talk their ass off. And when you smoke crack, all you want to do is be by yourself. You don't want nobody to come around. You don't want nobody to see you, knock on your door, nothing. You just wanted to be there isolated. And I thought, you're spending about 5 times as much money. Why do we think this is fun? I never figured that part out.
I didn't either. What made you decide to switch? Why did you get off cocaine, or why did you go over to start using methamphetamine? How did you get to that point?
I got caught when I was 21 years old with a possession of cocaine. I went on a police chase for about 6 or 7 miles, and anyway, I throwed out about a half ounce and forgot all about it when me and my friend got pulled over and they searched us. I had a little bottle, one of these little Coke vials in my pocket that had residue in it. They charged me with that, but they didn't get me right then. They were going to come back and charge me to send it off to the lab. They let me go home, and after I paid my fine and for the police chase and the other little smaller charges. And so they came back about 3 or 4 months later and told me that if he came back positive and they were charging me. And I went and done time. When I got out, I'd done like 13 months, whatever it was. And when I got out in Georgia, the state end there, when I got out, I was within 72 hours of getting out. I was back smoking again and had done without it for 13 months, And I was like, that's just, there's a difference between quitting when you want to quit and when you're forced to quit. Anybody can quit when you owe every dealer in town and nobody will give you none. That's not quitting. You're just cut off from it.
Right.
And or if you don't have the means to get anymore, if you've done been owe every dealer and you've done pawned everything and you can't borrow no money and this and that and the other, that's not really quitting. That's just being cut off.
Or when you
But
go
when you
to
quit,
jail and you can't get out of jail, and
yeah, you can't get it.
have you noticed that, like, when you go to jail and maybe you're coming off drugs, like, you don't feel as shitty as you would if you were out in the free world? Because it's like psychologically your mind knows that you can't leave the jail.
Exactly. I've experienced that a couple of times before.
Me
I was
too.
just like, you just resolve in your head that I'm not going to be able to do now while I'm in here. So there's no point in thinking about it or even wondering about it.
Yeah.
If I want to do something, I can do something when I get out, but it's not going to be right now. And you resolve that in your mind and you really don't have any, it's not near as tough. What's tough though is if you're out, if you're not under some kind of court mandated supervision, if you don't have a lot, that. But when I got out and I started back smoking again, and here I was, and I had parole and probation, and I was smoking within 72 hours of getting out, and I think I'd got an income tax check that had come while I was gone, so I had $1,000 or $2,000 when I got out, and that's what I
Mm-hmm.
immediately went to doing. And I thought, there's no way I'm gonna make it on parole here. I need to get the hell away from my friends and my surroundings and people like that. I'm not going to be able to quit where I'm at. And anyway, I met this girl. We started dating. I moved down to South Georgia for 4 or 5 years. She lived about 5 or 6 hours away. We moved in together, and that's what got me to quit. I knew I had to get away, and I did. And that's the last time I was, full with the crack bar, cocaine. But then, later on, this is the ironic story is I've been living there for about 3 years. 6 hours away. This is almost at the Georgia-Florida line. And anyway, I'm playing poker with these guys one night. So a couple of buddies of mine, and when they introduced me to one of their friends, and he come in and he said that he just got out of a Tallahassee federal prison. I mean, in Tallahassee, he just got out of the federal prison. And I said, really? That is so strange. I said, my dad was just down there for 5 years, and he said, really? And we got to talking, just they knew exactly. He knew everything about it. And it was like they were friends. And this is a stranger I met from 6 hours away from home and just happened to know. So anyway, this guy that opened me up to him, and he's like, "Hey, well, I've got some shit. If you ever didn't want to get back into it, you need anything, you'd be sure and holler at me," because he was still dealing naturally.
Yeah.
And so I got hooked up with him down there and started this whole operation over again until that came crashing down. And I had the police come in on me. Long story short, I had the police come in on me. I got didn't get busted then. I had cocaine. I had a couple ounces, a few ounces, and yeah. And this was kind of ironic. I was a car salesman down there. I just had been asked for the town. They were hosting the Georgia's annual DARE program, which is kids
Yeah.
to get off the drugs. They had got one car salesman, they got a town council member, and the mayor of the town to judge a car show. And all the police counties for the 52 counties in Georgia had brought a police car that they had confiscated. They had them all fixed up with the blue lights and this and that and the other. I was asked to be a judge on that show. I mean, for that car show. Had every officer in the world down there, things like that. And here I am still starting up my little operation down there. And I got to judge this show. They showed me on the front page of the paper one week, and I had a clipboard in my hand and my shirt and tie on. I'm judging a DARE show. And the very next week, I was in the same paper for something completely different. It was for drug charges and where they confiscated a BMW and a Harley Davidson, the whole 9 yards, took some money. Yeah, like I said, it's funny that I look back on it now. And
it's like you're on the front page of the paper for helping, and then you're on the front page of the paper for doing that shit.
Exactly.
What was it like the first time you ever did meth? And who did you use? You don't have to say who you used with, but like, was it a guy? Was it a girl? Was it a friend? And what was it like the first time you ever used methamphetamine?
I was like 17, 18. It wasn't near as easy to get. For me, just because of the people I knew and the people my dad messed with, it's a whole lot easier for me to get cocaine. I didn't know a lot of meth users, but one time I knew that's what this guy specialized in, and it was his main thing was he would get 5 to 10 pounds of meth at a time back then, and give me some one time. I said, "Hey, let me check this out. I might have a market for it." I knew a couple of guys that did it, so that's the first time I ever tried it, and I did try it, but a couple more times over the years because of the cocaine, and then circumstances led me to find a huge high level methamphetamine dealer. And he was he had kinfolk and family in Mexico, and he was a Mexican gentleman that lived in Atlanta, and I hooked up with him, and I was broken. I was real broke, and coming out of a divorce, and everything. Went from having a $200,000 house back in the early mid 90s, and everything I ever wanted. Had a boat, cars, everything, motorcycles, all kind of stuff, and so like all of a sudden this divorce wiped me out. The job, the industry I was in was the poker machine industry. They voted them out at about the same time. So I'm all of a sudden, instead of making $130,000 a year, I'm making zero. I have no job, and I'm losing everything I got for a divorce that I didn't see coming right then at the time. And then I was broke as a joke, and I was out partying, trying to get over this, not having my kids with me and stuff. And I didn't know how else to get back on top. But like, how do you lose everything it's took you 40 something years to accumulate? And then you don't have it. And you're like, hell, I don't have 40 more years to get back where I was at. Until I thought that was my solution when I met this gentleman from Mexico. And it got to be a whole lot bigger. Turned out to be a whole lot bigger thing than I ever wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Or intended for it to be. But I started out, I was just going to let me make a couple $1,000 just kind of get me through this hump right here. Let me find another job, this and that. And when I seen how easy this money come, all of a sudden it started coming, and I'm like, well, hell, maybe just one more time I'll do it. It was 6 months, a year later. I'm still, I'm living with my wife now, my second wife, my only wife now, but we've been together about 10 or 11 years. But anyway, me and her just met. I went through this divorce. Me and her just started dating. I'm broke as a joke, living in a government apartment. That's what I always tell her. I know you didn't marry me for my money because I didn't have none at the time. And I was behind on child support. I was going to jail a couple of times, and it was just terrible. And I met this guy, and I started dealing. Then all of a sudden, I was $7,000 behind in child support. It's just because I couldn't find a job at the time, And it wasn't that I'm fully aware that I'm supposed to support my kids. I'm all about that. I don't mind doing that. But I got out of the, next thing I know, I'm making enough money. I paid that $7,000 fine off. I'm living in a government apartment for the first time in my life. And then all of a sudden I'm doing, I knew one day I had to get out of the apartment because I'd accumulated, 40, 50,000 bucks just in 6 to 8 months. And, I'm like, I got to get the hell out of this apartment. I've done the stupid things that people do when they make a lot of money and they haven't had any for a while. I'm living in a government apartment. I run across a deal on a nice custom Harley Davidson. I went and bought this and a jet ski and on. I'm like, okay, my neighbors, I got to thinking about it later. I'm like, I guess they're going to probably wonder why I'm living in a government apartment and I've got shit like this out here. I guess I need to get the hell out of here because I can feel the heat coming on.
Yeah.
So, that's how
So
that,
you were living in government apartment, making all this money, buying all these stuffs. When did you get out of that apartment and buy a nice
yeah.
home, or
Oh,
did
yeah,
you
I
just
did.
tell me about
That's
that?
exactly what I did.
Transition us. Tell us. So you're doing the deal and you're selling meth and you're buying new stuff, but man, I have so much respect for the fact that you knew you needed to pay your child support, and that was one of the first things that you fucking did. That's what's up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just because my child's mom didn't, see eye to eye, or we grew apart, or whatever. It just never. That's my responsibility. I had those kids. These are my girls. I owe that to them. What kind of, I wouldn't feel like. Yeah, how could you feel like you're a dad or a man if you don't try to make your wrongs right and do
Yeah,
the right thing? Yeah, I'm supposed to support them. That's the hell I brought them in this world.
yeah, yeah,
But I had a good upbringing like that. My mom and dad, he might have did what he did for a living, but my mom and dad, they taught me manners. They taught me, well, everything in the world as far as having a normal childhood like that. It wasn't normal as far as in one sense, but in another sense, I thought it was great. It's because I could come home like on a Tuesday from school and like where the other parents or their kids and stuff, the kids would be like, I'm going to ask my dad if we can go out on the boat this weekend. And I didn't have to wait the weekend. My dad didn't have a job. He did
yeah.
what
So
he did. If I
you
wanted to go out on the
had,
boat or hey,
yeah,
Dad, you want to go to a
spend
car
time
show
with him.
tomorrow? Or why don't we go here tomorrow? I'm out of school tomorrow. We didn't have to he didn't have to call in and ask if he could have off or wait for a vacation day or something. But he's like, every day was like a Saturday. Do whatever, whenever, anytime. And I like that part. And maybe, I shouldn't have liked that part so much because I liked that a lot later on when I started doing the same thing. That's one thing that took me a while to get used to. I used to doing what I want. And the older you get, I do what I want to whenever I want to. If I want to go to Walmart at 3 o'clock in the morning, I just did it. It wasn't like I had to get up and I didn't even need an alarm clock. Me and my wife, we used to joke about this. I'd be like, what's up with them people? They got alarm clocks and calendars and shit and have to be places and things at the same time. Who needs that stuff? That's too much for me.
Did you
We
not?
made fun of that stuff.
I used so much meth and I would stay up at all the time. Did you not? Did you stay up a lot? I would have hallucinations and I would go into psychosis because I would stay up for so many
Oh,
days. I would think that my husband had a woman in the bed giving him, you know what, while I was laying
oh,
right beside him.
hey, I got a friend that has almost that exact same psychotic episode, just almost verbatim. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
yeah, I've been there and done that. I think the most I'd ever stayed at, the most I ever stayed up is I think I stopped counting at 17 days. But that I'd never even lay down to sleep, and it's
I
you
would
know,
die. I go
after
into
the first
full
3 or 4
blown
days,
psychosis after 3 days. 3 days and I'm in psychosis. 3 days.
well, we used to me and my friends we used to. I don't know if it was because of the stuff was so it was so powerful or potent at the time. But we always said that the first 3 days we don't really like because it takes about that third day to go by before the paranoia goes away, and then it's just like then the excuse the language they use, but it's like then you just don't give a fuck. If somebody's
Yeah.
watching you, if they're not watching you, what the hell ever. I'm doing me.
Okay, I'm still here. Don't worry. I was just muting
Yeah,
my fucking notifications because they kept going off because my best friend keeps texting me.
I got you. I got you. No problem. No problem. But
So back then, methamphetamine was a lot different than it is now.
it
So
is.
I started out using methamphetamine. That the dope cook I lived with did red phosphorus cooks.
Oh, that's the
Well,
best. At the time when I was a drug user, that was the kind you sought after. That's what you wanted.
yes,
Then
and
the
I
next
would
thing you
be
know, 3 days
okay.
or something disappeared.
I could do that for a couple days and not go into psychosis as quickly. I really started to notice me going into psychosis when this
Huh?
ice shit came on the scene. And it was
Yeah.
like I don't know what they do to it or what it has in it, but when I started injecting ice, it really fucked with my mental, you know?
It will. Yeah, it does, and it's like I say a lot of times that sleep deprivation. That's a hell of a thing. That can just by itself can lead you into psychosis.
Yeah.
Much less
That's what I
having a
think it
chemical
was
that's altering
really
it.
much. Was me not
Yeah.
sleeping because I would stay up for days and days on end. How what, did you have like girls and friends around you that would go into psychosis? And if they
Oh
did,
yeah.
what would you do? Would you like try to help them calm down, or would you like be like, you got to get the fuck out of here?
I've done both actually. I've done you in my head right now. Yeah, I've done it. Depends on who I was around, how much I really liked them or cared about them. But yeah, I tried to do the right thing and stay on the level. Even kill. But to keep getting from to get yeah. My wife, she kept me grounded a lot of times because sometimes I would get a little out there. The paranoia get to me, and especially
Yeah.
when I started dealing with such large amounts. It's not like all of a sudden. I remember it about made me sick. The first time I got like. Remember one time I got like 5 kilos, which is 12 pounds. You can't flush that much. You could hear a knock on your door and then a damn thing you could do about it. You couldn't go get rid of it if you wanted to. You would have to flush the commode 10 times, you can't get rid of that amount. You just done if you
Yeah.
get come in on at a time like that. And those amounts like that, I get a little overboard and get a little carried away being the paranoid or suspect of things, especially if I stayed up for a while or I get very suspect. It's like everything in the world. We'd be checking every car in the neighborhood. Be looking at. I've seen that car go by twice in the last week. What the hell does that mean? Well, normally, a normal person think, okay, they must live in the neighborhood. Not me. I'm like, oh, that son of a bitch. It's a law, man. I could see a damn. I could see a bread truck coming up the street. Out of the clear blue while I'm out on the highway paying a bill or something. It's a bread truck. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's the old SWAT team in the back of the old bread truck trick. Everything was, but
Did
you
you
have to
guys
have,
have the camera set up out? We had like a
oh, you
security
know what?
system.
I did.
It was like
That's
a
how you,
Nicky rigged one. It was like a rigged up one that was like ghetto as hell, and it would point at the driveway, the back of the trailer, because we were living in a trailer. Like we were cooking dope in the trailer.
oh, yeah. Oh, I've done that before. Yeah, I've done it. I got several experiences of cooking dope at Red Phosphorus Cooks. That's kind of you wanted to do. That was back to when the matches and the going and getting your iodine and you had making your iodine, the crystals, the whole 9 yards. And
Yeah.
oh yeah, and then it turns everything orange. When you go to gas it off, and yeah, I've ruined a couple of people's houses. I think doing that, because all of a sudden they got yellow spots and orange spots showing up on their walls and stuff like that, strange
Walls,
place.
yeah, totally.
you know,
And I would be so afraid because at this place that we lived at a dead end, a cul-de-sac. So when we would
uh-huh.
people would come down there and we would have people like it was so stupid. Like it was the stupidest shit I've ever done in my life. And it's like no wonder we got caught because it was literally right there on a cul-de-sac. How did you end up getting in trouble? Did they kick your door in? What happened?
They did actually. I got it. I started doing this like when I was going through this divorce back in '07, and first couple of years, I was pretty much broke. Broke. And anyway, I hooked up with him. I'm a Mexican friend. Met him through another acquaintance of mine. Me and my buddy, we were both broke at the time, having fighting bills and not having nothing. And he said, "Look, I got a friend of mine that wants to introduce you." He said he's met this guy out on a road crew from Atlanta. He's a Mexican guy, and he says he can help us out if he ever needed anything. He said, "Let's go meet him. I want you to go with me. Let's go meet him together. I don't want to go by myself." I said, "Okay, let's go." So we go meet him, and he had like the highest quality stuff I'd seen in years, and it was cheaper, $300 or $400 cheaper an ounce that I'd seen in years. I thought, man, we can really do something with this. We got rid of it, did it one time, made a couple $100. We had to scrounge and scrape to get our first ounce together, which was like $1,200. We borrowed money, do this and that. We didn't have $1,200 together. And anyway, and I was living in that apartment, and so anyway, we got this together, and it worked out. And a couple of days later, I had some buddies like, "Hey, can you give me some more of that?" So we call him back down here again. Next thing you know, it's like less than right at a year later. And I remember I knew we needed to get out of this apartment when he was coming one day to bring us, I think, 3 keys, and we were paying $34,000 a piece at the time. And we counted out over $102,000, $100,000, over $100,000 in cash. while we're still in a government apartment.
Yeah.
And I thought,
before we was counting change to get.
yeah, but before that, like my wife said, we were counting change to get a drink and gas money for the car.
Yeah.
You know, and then a year later, we got 100,000 that's in cash that we're buying, and then we're getting more on front. And so,
it was super high.
and oh yeah, and we were super high all the time. Yeah, correct. But that's how that come about. Anyway, I bought a house. We got a house, and it's years later. It's about 8 years later. After I'm still going, I've decided, why should this stop? And one day, had the DEA and Homeland Security come in on me, and it was a friend of mine that had set me up at the time. Yeah, it was a friend of mine. He had got caught. He had made a phone call. Actually, this is a really strange story here. He had actually, him and his stepdad, they had done a deal one time, and where they took a couple of stolen cell phones in. And anyway, one of them accidentally couldn't see the numbers on it, and had accidentally dialed 911 from this cell phone that didn't have a SIM card in it, or so he thought. And a little bit later, the law shows up at his house and says, "Hey, we got an emergency call from this number. Can we check things out, make sure that nobody's hurt here and on?" And they're like, "Yeah, come on in." And one of the lawmen walked down the hall and pushed up a bedroom door and seen some methamphetamine laying on a nightstand. And say, just from this cell phone call, it's made national news in newspapers. You can look it up on Google. But anyway, so he got caught. And so the law come there and searched some more, and then they found a lot more drugs, and they found like $109,000 in cash in their attic. Where it was some of my customers these were two guys that were my customers that I dealt with for a long time. And so they busted them. I get the guy out of jail. I paid for him to get out of jail. And thought we were all cool and stuff. And actually give him some drugs this day. When he got out of jail, I had that girl go pick him up. I said, "Hey, bring him by here when you go get him out." I had a bondsman on speed dial because I got several buddies out of jail that year. When anybody would get caught that I dealt with, I would always make sure that they got out. And I've had their wives come by here, and I'd give them the hundreds of dollars. Hey, look, pay your bills for the next month. So you get some bond reduction here. Had them come. I try to take care of the people that dealt with because they're a whole lot less likely to tell on you and
exactly.
tell everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I put a few $100s in his pocket. He went to his house, and he said, "Man," he said, "I didn't know you were going to get me out." I said, "Man, I seen you in one of these little local jailbird newspapers that you got caught. I knew y'all were both in there, and I knew you had the money to get out if one of y'all could get out to get to it. So I decided to get one of y'all out." He had no idea. He said, "Man," he tried, and he said, "Hey, never knew that I had a friend like you, that would do something like that. It was the ones you didn't expect to do that. I just did it out of the kindness of my heart." And he was the one that they caught him with that $109,000. So about 3 days later, they were still watching him and had been watching me for a year and a half. Is what the DEA said. So had they seen his truck come over here when they were watching me? They thought, "Oh, okay, the guy with $109,000, they're doing something together." They pulled him over, leaving my place, and he had a couple ounces on him, and told him immediately where he got it from. And they took a couple hours to get a warrant, and I had went and got it out of a storage place that I rented because I didn't leave drugs here at the house. So they come and got it, and they come in on me before I had a chance to take the rest of the drugs back. I brought some here to the house to weigh it up, which I never did, and for some reason I just did all the things wrong that day that I shouldn't have been doing, and brought it to the house, and I thought he must have wanted a half pound or a pound because that's what he usually got. And he didn't. He just wanted a couple ounces. And he said, "I'll just give you some back when my supplier comes in." And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." So I had several ounces here at the house. And before I was able to take it back to my storage place, about 2 hours later, I get a battering ram in the front door.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. I would have had a heart attack.
And they immediately told me what had happened. They immediately said, "Okay." They showed me the warrant and said, "Okay, this person had been over here earlier this morning and got caught leaving your place." And hell, there hadn't been but one person who had been there at my house in several days. I knew it was him.
Yeah.
And then it had his vehicle description and all that, But here's the thing: I don't hold that. I did for a long time. I held that against the guy. People are like, "Oh, don't you want to kill this guy? Don't you want to do this?" You think all kind of bad things like that. But here's where it comes full circle at. That guy he wasn't a problem. If I wasn't doing something illegal and something that was destroying lives and destroying our communities, and they wouldn't have had nothing to bust me with. He couldn't have told on me if I wasn't doing anything wrong. So that's my fault. You have to accept things like that. When as my wife used to tell me all the time, I would look out in the neighborhood a lot of times. We live in middle class America. We live this middle class America. Just regular. Like on the names of the streets are Walnut Street and this. I'm saying middle class America. The 2.1 car garage and a lawnmower in the driveway and all this. Anyway, she said, I'm always seeing if I see somebody walking through the neighborhood late at night, something I'll be like, what the hell are they doing? You know, I bet they're looking for something to steal because I do not like thieves. I have a passion against not liking thievery and stealing. And I would say, I bet they're looking for a lawnmower to steal. I bet they're looking for a damn leaf blower or somebody's shit to steal. I hate that. And she's like, one day she brought it to my attention. She's like, if it wasn't for, not that she put it down, she was all about what I did. We were both in on the shoot. I didn't have no secrets from. She knew how we were able to survive and live a good life and not work for 8 or 9 years apiece. Neither one of us worked, and we didn't. We were happy, and we provided well for our family. That business is. But anyway, come to the point is, she would say, well, she said, Nikki, if it weren't for people doing like what you're doing, I always put it off in my mind that if they don't get it from me, they'll get it from somebody. That's how I justified selling. If they don't get it from me, they're going to find it somebody. It's not like it's going to make people quit doing drugs. That's how I justified it. But if it weren't for people like me doing that, there wouldn't be people like that walking around neighborhoods stealing stuff at night either. That's what I did, putting all this poison out on the streets. That's what led to people stealing for it, and breaking up families, causing divorces and fusses and fights and things about money and destroying lives.
Yeah, you seem like you have a lot of remorse for what you did, and you're sorry for it.
Yeah, I do. That's I'm not proud of that. But another thing that I thought is because I used to justify it, but then my daughters got to be teenagers and all, and then they're great kids, fantastic kids. Both of them graduated. Well, all three of my daughters, one of them's a little older than the other two, but they've all got college degrees. My youngest one's got her master's at 22 years old, and she works. This is kind of ironic. My middle daughter and my youngest daughter, they both work. They have degrees in criminal justice.
I bet they do.
They all three came to see me in prison. They knew what I did for a living. I didn't bring it. I didn't expose them to it. They've never seen me with drugs and things like that. Or they might have seen me high and just didn't know it.
With addiction? Did your daughters ever have struggles with addiction?
I've got one that might have had. She's had a problem before, but she's doing fine now, and I'm grateful for that. But I always I put myself kind of like, since I was in prison and I was kind of noticing stuff, I was like, I want to kill somebody if I found out they were selling my daughter's drugs. And I thought, well, I wonder how many people, if they knew what I did, they would feel that way about me. Because
that's how I feel about my little boy too. I can relate.
Yeah, I've done wrong. I admit that, and I've done my time though. I just got finished my 4 years on parole. Been working at the same place for 5 years.
How long were you locked up?
Just a little over 2 years.
And then you had 4 years on parole?
Yes, I sure did.
Was it hard for you to find a job and get back to like regular society when you got out?
To get a job, I was a little nervous because I've always been real outgoing and outspoken, and you might even say a little cocky, a little damn, whatever. But I didn't, if you do meth for so long, you don't have that quiet, like you fit into society kind of thing. If you've done the wrong thing for so long, it's like you get to where people think that it'll be great to not work and have money to do what they want to and to be able to go where they want to, whenever they want to, any day of the week. And it is, but after a while, you feel like where you feel like you're not a contributing member of society. Like you don't have a right to say something about this or something going on in your neighborhood or something that's happening in your community. You don't feel like, well, I can't go up there and vote on this, or I can't go up there and help do something about this, because you feel like you're the scum of the earth. You're destroying society, and you know it deep in your mind that that's what you're doing.
Yeah. It was hard for me to adjust to communicating with people because for so many years I was high. So when I got sober and I started trying to like go in public and talk to people or go to the gas, just talking to people, I felt really awkward. Like, am I talking too fast? Am I twitching? And that's what people would point out to me because I would talk fast. I did have like a little perma tweak about me. So it was like hard for me to adjust.
Yeah, I had a little things, something like that I do with my hands. It'd be like doing this sometimes, or just little nervous ticks or twitches that you get from doing that. And people point out, my wife's pointed out before, hey, slow down when you talk. And I would have to and now I sell cars for a living. I work, and these guys I'm sure don't mind me mentioning, but I work at a new Ford dealership, and I've been there for several years. They were good enough to me. When I got out to a halfway house, I went straight out of the halfway house. I had a job within 10 days of doing that. Still at the halfway house, even though I have a house and a wife and things like that. It's only 2 miles from our dealership. I had to go back and forth about 20 miles to stay in this federal halfway house. And these guys were good enough to hire me. I think I've been looking for a job for 2 days, and they took a chance on me. I had an ankle monitor on at the time, and I was straight up down with them. I'm like, look, I live at a halfway house, but I know how to talk to people. I know how to sell cars. That's what I've done previously many years ago. I didn't know if I still had it in me or not, but I kind of, I was going to see one way or the other. And I've been there ever since. I've been there. I'll be there 5 years this coming March.
Hell
And
yeah,
these guys
that's
know my past.
success.
Yeah, they kid me about it. They were all about it. They'll tell customers of mine a lot of times. They'll be like, "Hey, you have to watch Nicky over here. He's still got an ankle monitor. He ain't had it off long, and he just got out of prison and this and that." They'll tell customers, "I'm trying to make a $50,000 car sale, and stuff like that."
Right.
And it just happens several times a month. And they'll tell their customer that. And I just told I sold the sheriff of another county about a week ago, and sold him and his wife a car. And my manager comes over there kidding about it, and I'm like, you can't believe nothing this guy says. They think we're cutting up and kidding it, but they're actually telling the truth. I really did get hired straight out of prison. And when if people find that out, they think it's hilarious. They think it's funny. I had that sheriff. I had him tell me that he said, "Look, me and my wife don't judge. What you doing now, that's all that counts." And I'm like, well, I like to meet people like that.
People drug addicts and alcoholics, addicts specifically, are good at selling things. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like a perfect job for you to like excel at and be like very successful. When I got out of prison, I was just like working at like Hallmark or something like that. But then my boss found me online and hired me to do marketing, which is like a form of sales basically. And I love it.
Sure.
I'm obsessed with it. It's what I'm good at. I'm good at the gift of gab, and so are you.
That goes a long way. It'll get you through a lot of stuff. That sense of humor I found will get you a long ways in life.
Dude,
you can
your
make friends. If you
videos
got a
are
gift
the
together.
shit. Like your
Hey, I
videos are on
appreciate that.
TikTok. That's why I was telling you, y'all. I was telling Nicky he needs to make a YouTube channel and make story time videos. Like 15 minutes long, a story. Who is Nicky Nixon? That's your first video, and then the second video, how I got, or my first time using cocaine, and just like a series of videos, and you would go, like I'm telling you, you would be very popular on YouTube, and that could be like a second job for you. It could be.
I've had somebody tell me this. I appreciate your vote of confidence there. I've been aiming to do that. I haven't had the time recently, or just had to get what it takes to just finally go ahead and push the button and make my own YouTube channel. But I am planning on that really soon. I might get you to help me with it.
I'll help you out because I think you would do really, really great. And I just really enjoy your storytelling. I feel like you would be even better by yourself, like on your own channel, sharing your stories because you don't feel no pressure. And you could just relax and be yourself. I mean, that's how what I love to do, So I just think that you're really, really good at that. But I want to ask you,
do well at what you do.
Tell me about how you're staying how do you stay sober after all these years of using these drugs? What is it that helps you stay sober?
Here's the thing that I think that'll help most addicts. The thing is, how they tell you, they'll tell you, I've been to many AA meetings, NA meetings, things like that. They were court mandated, of course. And I've been to not an inpatient, but I've been to an outpatient where you go 3 hours a day, 3 or 4 days a week. That was part of my parole or whatever. Completed that. But the main thing that people don't get is you really have to, I've got several friends I haven't seen I might see them once or twice a year. They were good friends. They were lifelong buddies, and I can't be around them. And they still did what they did. They still did what we did. You can't put yourself in those situations like that. No matter how much I like them, I'll call them and wish them a Merry Christmas and hey, how you doing? Or or whatever. Y'all doing okay? I might do that every 2 or 3 months. But as far as me going by their house or going around where they at, I can't do that. It's like you can be in a room with $100,000 sitting on a table in front of you, and you might be the most honest person in the world, and you turn it down day after day after day after day. Okay, if I keep seeing this right here in front of me day after day, and all of a sudden maybe somebody, maybe a year and a half from now, I'm getting in front of it, and somebody says, "Hey, well, your child's going to have this operation tomorrow, and I don't know how you're going to pay for it. And you're losing your job and your house." They might keep tempting me. keep tempting me with enough, and sooner or later, you'll cave. So why put yourself in that situation? You got to just keep your guard up, and you got to stay away from certain places and things, because that's how people fall back. I think people fall back into addiction or relapse when because opportunity comes into a door that is purposely left open. Sometimes I believe by your subconscious. You'll think I'm just going to go by here and pick my buddy up from the bar. He called me and he's drunk, and I'm just going to be a good Samaritan. I'm straight and I'm sober. I'm going to go by and pick him up and take him home and do a good deed right there. What you're doing is you're subjecting yourself. Your buddy also sells a little dope on the side. He's probably got some on him. Next thing you know, I relapsed, but it was all his fault. I was just going and doing a good deed, and I ended up, relapsing. No, you should have knew that to start with. You should have thought about that. You knew what the hell you put yourself in. So why didn't you just call him an Uber? You didn't have to go pick him up. He would have made it home without. A lot of times you put yourself in situations that you need to think about shit like that before you do it.
You make a good point. And that is why I struggled to stay sober for so many years before, because I wouldn't take those people out of my life. I kept trying to hold on to those old friends because subconsciously I didn't want to let go of getting high. I still wanted to use.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And they'll bring you down before you'll bring them. Before you get them sober, they will get you back addicted. That's the way I look at it. Because that's secretly.
You jump in the water to try and save somebody that's drowning, they're going to grab onto you and pull you down to push themselves up and drown you.
Yeah.
It's the same concept with addiction. And they might not mean to, but that's how it's going to happen,
Yeah, and then you're going to be sitting there blaming, this is how I relapse. It's like people saying, and you got to be strong in that. You got to realize what the situation. That's how situations always start. That's how situations start out when you get a DUI or when you do drugs or things like that. It all starts off as innocent. I'm just going to go do this to help so and so, or I'm just going to do this. I know they still do that, but I'm not messing with it. I'm not going to, let myself. Well, get around them long enough, and they like, hey, you see how much what you think is fun that they're having, and they, and you're so used to it, and that old thing creeps right into your head, and next thing you know, I guess one little bump more. It's just like when I started off on cocaine. I only did it on the weekends, or I only did it on special occasions. And then pretty soon that weekend, this Friday and Saturday night turns into an all-day Friday or an all-day Saturday. Next thing you know, it's like, well, I'm a little tired Thursday night, so I'm going to go ahead and start now. Next thing you know, my Sunday carried on into Monday, so I'm partying a little bit Monday because I had some left over. Next thing you know, you're doing it every day. Nobody sets out to be an addict. Nobody ever says, hey, you know what? I think I want to be a damn meth addict. Or, hey, you know what? I want to be homeless and I'd like to be a heroin addict. It doesn't start out like that. It starts out innocent and just something that, you're letting your guard down and you let a little bit creep into your borders or boundaries that you have set for yourself. Used to you only did it on weekends, but now you let that guard down and you say, well, now I can do it. I'm just going to do it this one Monday or this one Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah. 2 years later, here you are wondering how the hell you got to be a drug addict and how you're doing drugs every single day of your life and how it's overtaking you. That's how it overtakes you.
And it happens. It happens, and it's like it almost feels like it's in the blink of an eye, But now sobriety takes time, putting one foot in front of the other, doing the right thing, going to your job, taking care of your wife, taking care of your kids, paying for your stuff that you're supposed to pay for, paying your fines and fees, doing the parole stuff. Like that's a lot of hard work and dedication. It's a lot easier to go back to our old life and just relapse and get high, but like we have to choose to live every single day. You know what I mean? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And the thing that a lot of people, I think it discourages them when they're getting sober is, just because you decided today is the real day that I want to be sober, and when you've been screwing up and doing what you do for the last few years, being an addict. When you're doing addict things, and and nobody expects you to show up at family reunions. Everybody knows you're going to be 3 hours late to this if you show up at all. Everybody knows you're going to miss birthdays and holidays, and you always got an excuse. People start making excuses for you. And so then when you decide to turn your life around and you want to be like straight up and down, and I'm going to do the right thing, and I really want to get off this shit, and people don't tend to believe you. It takes a couple of years for that to happen, or maybe maybe a little less, but sometimes a little longer before, just because you go and show up twice or to some event that you're supposed to be there on time, you make it a couple of times. The world's not going to applaud you and give you some kind of damn medal and stuff like that. You got to do the right thing all the time. And a couple of years after that, people, when you're not getting into trouble and you're not screwing up, then people will notice that, hey, this guy's been doing the right thing. He must mean it. He's still got the same job. He's not losing a job every other month, or he's not, getting it. I don't see him in jail in the paper every, 3 months, or,
Right.
it takes a while for people
It
to believe
took about a
everything.
year for my mom and dad to really truly believe that I was staying sober and I wasn't going to go back because I had gone back so many times before, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's classic there. That's the way it happens. That's the way it happens.
I have to ask you a question and then I'll let you get off
Cool.
here. If you could tell, I want you to imagine that in the audience right now, somebody was watching this show and they are struggling. They feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. They don't think they can get sober. They've given up on themselves. What are some things that you would say to somebody that's really struggling in active addiction right now?
There's always it can always get worse. You think that I would, everybody's, I think that's been through this will go to a point in their life where they're like, oh, everything bad happens to me. I'm the one at them. I can't get the money to pay this. I don't have a car. My car broke down. This and that and that. And you think it's bad, or you don't have what everybody else has, or as easy as what you think a lot of average Americans that don't do drugs like they have. And it takes a little work. It takes a little time sometimes, but it it will come about. It will happen. But what helps me a lot is a lot of times I think, well, I don't have the biggest house or a house as big as I once had, or I don't have certain things that maybe I've had before, at different times in my life. But then it's like my wife will remind me now. We've talked about it before. When if we get depressed or down and out or think about something, we're like, I mean, it's not like it didn't hit me now. There's sometimes I would be like, damn, I wish I had a whole lot more energy, or
Yeah.
just normal. But and I know what gives you energy, but I have to be thankful about. It can always get worse. All of a sudden, I'll read a story or something about in the paper or in a magazine or something. With some guy that's living in a third world country, or somebody that doesn't have food to eat every day, or somebody that is homeless and maybe missing a limb or something, that doesn't have a car, and they're sitting there. And I see people walking up the street to go to work, and they might be walking 2 miles a day. You don't never know what somebody else is going through, and don't always to think that you're the one that's so unlucky. No, your life could be a lot worse. There's a whole lot of stuff that can happen that'll bring your ass down in a heartbeat. I was sitting in a prison in Alabama just about 4 or 5 years ago. Two or 300 miles from my home, from anybody. My wife, she actually couldn't come and visit me because I was nice enough to let her take a felony charge for me several years earlier. They don't let felons see each other,
Yeah.
so and then you sitting there, and then you don't see your kids. You're getting sober all of a sudden instead of being messed up, and it's you think you might, how much worse could my life get? I'm sitting in a 6x8 box somewhere, or in Atlanta Federal, and it's terrible. It's not a good place. It's not where nobody wants to be. And then you don't know what's going on in the outside world, and you have no control over it, and you realize the whole world is going by. It didn't stop because you go to prison. Everybody else's
Yep.
lives are still the same. But it can always be more. The encouragement I would give them: you got to get sober. You can't quit thinking about the drugs. Do something different. I always told myself, I always said, why in the hell, if I really don't have a problem, I'm really not hooked, like I tell everybody, then I ought to be able to go without it for 2 or 3 months. Shouldn't bother me a bit. I mean, and hell, I can always go back to it. I can pick it right back up since it's not a big deal to me and it's not a big problem. Then
Yeah.
why can't I quit for a week or two? Well, let's just see. If I can't quit for a week or two, then I really do probably need help. And you have to be real with yourself about that. Quit convincing yourself it's always somebody else's fault. It's this, that. Now let's be real. You know what you do and what your accountability is to your
Or you
own
don't
personal
want to quit.
problems. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and if some people's not ready to quit, I've seen where people get triggered by different things. I've seen this little. I made a video about it actually. I think I was making fun of this because people was like, "Oh, well, this. I seen a damn. And somebody showed me a picture. Actually, they were taking a video of mine down. I believe this is what triggered me to say this, but it was because I showed a mirror or something, and I insinuated it could have been used for cocaine use. And somebody, oh well, it might trigger somebody. Said they're gonna, get TikTok to take my video down or whatever.
Don't you know
Don't be a wimp
that
like that.
the
Yeah,
kids nowadays they all want trigger warnings for everything, Nikki. You got to have a
Well,
you
of
trigger
course,
warning
in
for
a minute, because
everything.
they were sure they don't belong.
Yeah.
I could go into. I could go into Walmart right now, and if I wanted to use every piece of drug paraphernalia in the world that's going to trigger me and make me go do drugs, I couldn't even walk to Walmart. I could see tinfoil in there. I could see them baggies in there. I could see scales in there. I could see spoons in there. I could see straws in there. Everything like that. Quit being a punk about it and
Life
letting it
doesn't
trigger
come
you.
with trigger warnings. That's what I tell my
Yeah.
people. Life
You
doesn't
know,
come with a trigger warning. You can't walk around in a bubble of protection for the
that's
rest
right.
of your life. You gotta walk
Amen.
through that shit and face your fears. I
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
I've been
You're going to
going
be exposed to it.
the same thing happens to me all the time. Just recently, people were dragging me because I showed something in a video and it could have been triggering. I was like, you guys, how are you going to heal if you don't face your triggers?
I think you're not really wanting to quit then. If you're letting every little thing like that bother you, and using that as an excuse to go back to drugs, then you're not really wanting to quit. So you're not ready to quit. You're not trying. I mean, just
Amen.
because you see a picture of a baggie or a baggie laying on the side of the street, oh, that's got to make me go do drugs. That's bullshit. You know,
Stand
you
up
can't
and
do.
face it.
It's
I want to
fine.
tell you the
Yeah,
story since
that's
you
right.
brought up triggers. My
Uh-huh.
my dog, I shot up drugs. I used needles. My dog about 4 years ago became a diabetic, and
All
I
right.
freaked the fuck out. I was like, "Oh my god, how am I going to give my dog injections?" I get triggered by needles. You know what I
Okay,
did?
yeah, I can see that. I can
I
see
bought
that.
the fucking needles and I gave my fucking dog the injections and I overcame the trigger. And that's all. That's what happened. I stayed sober through it. Who would have thought?
There you go. Hell, really, hey, but that's what you got to do. You can't, yeah, don't give in. You got to put some kind of effort into damn trying to quit. I mean, how, you know what I'm
I
saying? You can't be a wimp. You're just looking at people that let them be triggered that easily. It's because they're
Well,
secretly, I think, they're wanting to continue to do drugs
they don't
anyway.
want to have to suffer
right
with it.
Yeah, they don't have to
subconsciously.
suffer.
And so
Yeah,
that's
that's true.
what I tell people is if you have triggers that are that strong, connect with other people and talk about it. Tell
Yeah.
on your disease. To talk and say, I am struggling with seeing spoons. What I tell people is exposure therapy, baby. Put all the spoons in your house on the counter and look at
Wear
them.
one as a necklace. I said, wear one on your necklace. You
Right?
know, and use a spoon or whatever.
But I'm serious. Like that can help you. Like I used to have another trigger that was really like it really made me think of drugs was the bottle caps from water bottles because I used to put water in them and
Oh,
mix up my shot. But
I
I
know exactly
can't
what
go
you're
through
talking
life not drinking water bottles because of that trigger.
about. I know what you mean. That's what you're saying is true. You gotta man up or woman up, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to be politically correct here. You gotta have a little responsibility, and everything that happened in your life, as far as drugs wise, it didn't happen because of this, that, and the other. There's a lot of people that goes through trauma, that loses parents, loses this, that, and the other, that goes through mortgages, bankruptcies, divorces, things like that, that don't resort to drugs. That's not. It's a cop out sometimes. I understand sometimes you can relapse. I do understand that. Drugs are addictive. They're very good. If they wasn't very good, nobody, if you didn't give it a second thought, it wouldn't be addictive. You know,
Right.
I wanted to, like when I was using, I wanted the stuff. If it didn't make me want to go pawn my grandmother the next morning or think about it the second I woke up out of bed, it probably wasn't a drug I wanted to do. You know,
Exactly.
what kind of appeal does that have? I wanted to take my life over. Evidently, is what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know.
yeah, we have a lot of the same, I feel like kind of the same beliefs. I try really hard to help people and explain things to them, but I feel like at a certain point, like you said, we have to take responsibility for our actions. We have to
Yeah.
own our part and, running away from triggers and hiding away and trigger warning for everything. Like nobody's ever going to overcome anything if they just are padded through life,
Yeah,
So,
you can't take that. They can't take all this stuff away from people. They're going to be exposed to it, and it don't matter what people out here. People say they're going to move, they're going to change jobs, this and that. You know what? They're going to be drug addicts at the next plant you go to, or the next job you go to. You're going to be exposed to it. There's a liquor store on every corner. You can't just isolate yourself from that. You're going to be out there with it in society.
People's lives be affected by what you do too, though. In a negative way, that kind of helps you.
Yeah, and that's like my wife's pointing out. I see people's lives affected in a negative way by the things I did, and that kind of makes me. I feel bad about it. A lot of times I seen my brother. My brother's a preacher. He's my brother does very well. He's been straight sober for about 13 years now. Got a wife, kids, the whole 9 yards. And he was actually he was a terrible drug addict at one time, just like myself. But I see, I remember a few years ago, right before I got busted, it kind of affected me. I've seen a child that he had invited a church family to come over to his house for afternoon, and he's got his minister's license, a nice church, the whole 9 yards. Anyway, he had his family come over, his wife and kids, and because the parents, I think, were going through a divorce or something, or one of them was an addict, didn't have anything, and all that. And this little girl was over there, would stay with them that day. She's 6 or 7 years old, and I had to stop by. And I remember meeting the little girl, and they were telling me that how the parents were the drug addicts, and they were taken away, or they just now getting custody, or it was kind of touch and go like that. And for some reason, it just hit me. I thought, it's because of people doing what the hell I'm doing is made situations like this. What would her life be like if her mom and daddy wasn't drug addicts and I hadn't been selling drugs and people like me weren't out on the streets? They might have a perfect family. They might have a perfect life. Who knows? I know it'd be a lot easier than whatever life they were living then.
Yeah. Man, I have so much respect for you with how remorseful you are and how kind-hearted and thoughtful you are about how your actions affected other people. I have a lot of respect for you for that because there's a lot of people that don't think like that.
Yeah. It's like my wife said, I ain't always thought like that. I haven't always said that.
I'm proud of you. Like, for
Hey,
real,
I
I'm
appreciate
serious. A lot of people think, a lot of people who sell drugs, they think that they're not hurting anybody, and they think that they're only helping themselves and improving the economy or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
And
I put
that's just
myself all
not the
kind of
truth.
lies and shit too, when I was doing it. But if you face the facts, if everybody would say, like I said, I always said, if I'm not selling it to them, hell, they'll be buying it somewhere else. It's not like I'm going to save the world. I'll save you. See if you go save the damn world. Was my thinking. If it don't make a dollar, it don't make sense. I was hardcore. I was about it. That was the life I lived. My life was that the whole world revolved around drugs and selling drugs and things that involved it. But it does destroy communities. It does destroy families. It's terrible. It's not good. It destroys people. People that have a lot of sense, that have a lot of potential, that's taken away. And I see that over again.
And you are a user and a dealer, so you were on both ends of the spectrum. So drugs, not only you didn't only make money off drugs, but they also hurt your family as well. So I'm just really, I really want you to know how grateful I am that you came on here and shared with me tonight. It means a lot to me.
No problem.
I would love to have you on again. Now that we broke the ice and this, I broke Nikki's live cherry, didn't I?
Do it.
Did I break your live cherry? Is this your first live? Hell yeah!
I hear you, girl. I hear you.
Maybe next time your wife can join you on live with me, and my husband could join me, and we could bounce. Because like me and my husband, we were in drug addiction together. Were y'all in active addiction together too?
Oh, hell
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we could join up together and do like a husband and wife live or something. That would be cool.
Hey, we can do that.
Okay, cool. I'll text you, but you guys, please make sure you guys go over and follow Nicky Nixon right now, and I will let you go so that way you can go chill out with your wife, and I really appreciate you joining me tonight, okay, man?
Sure, and if you want to see, like you say, if you want to see some funny videos about the stupid shit that people do while they're in addiction or about dealing and things like it, go check out my videos. I'd love to
check out his videos. Go follow him right now.
Hey, well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I'll be talking to you soon. Have a good
night.
Bye,
babe. See you later. Bye, wife. Love you.
All right, love you too.